Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Cyber, founder of North American Beatbox, top 16 at Midwest, third place Money in the Hat Beatbox Battle, and sixth place Money in the Hat Beatbox Battle. I'm joined here with CTB, Black Rhythm, and Kazu. Um, just give a brief description about yourself, guys.
Yeah, I am Caleb Titus, aka CTB. I am the co-founder of North American Beatbox. I'm in charge of basically all the videos that you see that go up on our YouTube channel and top 16 of the online worlds put on by humanbeatbox.com and top 8 2016 tag team for the American Championships.
My name is Edgar Garcia, aka Black Rhythm. I am the 2016 Puerto Rican champion, as well as the 2014 and 2015 vice Puerto Rican champion, as well as the president of Beatbox in Puerto Rico, and I'm the social media manager for North American Beatbox.
Hey guys, I'm Kazu. My name is also Kazu. I am the community director at humanbeatbox.com, and I like to travel around the world to go to beatbox events and take pictures and then post it on Instagram. That's more or less my job title, but yeah, humanbeatbox.com.
Okay, so we have this is a new thing we're starting on North American Beatbox. We're gonna start doing podcasts. This is the first one. This is the second podcast of its kind, actually. The first one being called The Beatbox, run by P. Fats and Kayla, the 2015 female world champ. So basically, we have a whole list of topics that we're going to choose from, that being the musicality versus technicality controversy, the Mark versus Trung Bao, Mark Martin versus Trung Bao battle, and our opinions on that, the our opinions on the American Championships, predictions of the Grand Beatbox Battle, and what 2017 has in store for beatboxing.
Alrighty.
So
Okay.
let's get Kazu's opinion on this right off the bat. Kazu, what's your opinion on the musicality versus technicality
Debate.
opinions going on?
So,
Debate, yes, debate that's going on right now.
Uh, well, I'm not sure what is currently going on about that, but I feel like many people like to categorize, as technicality or, musicality. There really shouldn't be a difference between the two. I mean, technicality is like your tools, and musicality is how you use those tools. So I always was confused by, especially when people categorize certain beatboxers as, musicality, like Gene, was always like confused when people called him, like a musicality beatboxer because, he's just a beatboxer. He just likes to do, full songs with his beatboxing. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
I completely agree 100%. That being said, though, if there's musicality and technicality, then where would like people who primarily focus on bass, where would they fit in? Would they be in the middle, or would they be more musicality? Like Big Ben, for
as
I would.
example.
someone that actually does focus a lot on bass, and that is my main strength, I can say that if anything, first and foremost, my biggest problem before you even get to the question regarding primarily bass heavy beatboxers, before you even get to that, the whole thing going around with musicality versus technicality, I'm not really a big fan of even the division because when you say musicality, you don't mean musicality. What people mean is they mean melodic. If you do a melody, you're instantly musical. You're instantly doing a musicality beat or something, and people like Gene and Trung Bao actually are really good at having complex layering with melodies. And it's I feel like the lines are starting to kind of like blur once you look at it as at a big picture because everybody likes to think, oh, if you do a melody or like a song cover, you're automatically musical. But if you do, let's say, mainly drum sounds with other sound effects with not much melody, than you're a technical beatboxer. And I feel like I was looking at a big picture, and we just take the term tech. You should honestly take the term musical out, because if we take the term musical out of this division, it becomes melody versus basically a drum solo versus the melody of a song. That's basically what this boils down to in its most simplest form. This whole debate, and the melody plus the drum solo is a time for, let's say, the drummer to show off. But the thing is, the drummer also can go along with a melody. The issue is when people neglect one and focus so much on the other, so they don't have any balance. There's so many boxers that they're so focused on speed and having so many sounds in a short amount of time that if you ask them to stay on beat for more than a minute, they'd struggle. And I feel like once we kind of stop that division and start really openly on a wide scale, because there's a lot of beatboxers that, of course, mix quote unquote technicality with quote unquote musicality. Freddie Beats, B Art, Reaps One was one of the big people to really start kicking some of that stuff off. And there's so many people like that have really been doing it. But yeah, I feel like once we just kind of break those walls down, it'll kind of help the community a lot in the future.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That being said, though, if you think about it, I'd say Trung does more tech than musicality. Like, yes, he adds melodies over, like Equinox, for example, his cover of Equinox. But in the end, that still has a technical drop, does it not?
Well, it does, and the thing is, there's I kind of look at it like, let's say you're playing like an RPG, right? Stay with me. You have a character, and this character there might be a very mid-tier character where they are at least average in every category, or they're proficient in one, but they can still do certain things to an extent in another category. I feel like it's very rare to find a perfectly balanced individual in any art form. And let's say particular beatboxing, some people just primarily do melodic things, and some people they primarily do technical things. But there are people that can use both to a high degree. And I feel like that's what we're kind of reaching, is when a lot of people can do both at a high degree. And when you're mentioning Trung Bao, are you trying to go into this thing now, or are we just gonna keep touching on musical technicality?
No,
Okay,
Well,
he's
so
just the first person that came to mind.
yeah.
Edgar, what are your thoughts on musicality and technicality?
Well, the first thing that I would like to say is that I would like to echo Kazu's words in terms of it being a false dichotomy. I don't see this idea that musicality goes one way and technicality goes another way is something that I just think it's false. I don't think that, for example, Gene, which was mentioned before, I don't think that somebody like Gene can make a highly musical piece without having the technical proficiency necessary to execute it. So in that sense, I would argue that technical abilities are important for you to do great beatboxing, whichever style you decide to do so. Another thing that I would like to point out is a great quote by Reese One, where he's talking about mastering the importance of technicality in terms of not letting your lack of skill limit your ideas. He was talking about mastering technicality so as not to be limited by your skill in terms of the ideas that you want to communicate with your art. But at the same time, he said, like in the next sentence, he said that for somebody to be very technical without having much to express or much to talk about through their music, it's like when somebody knows the whole alphabet but doesn't know how to get a sentence or a paragraph together. And I see that in a lot of beatboxers, especially these young beatboxers, where the focus is on sounding cool or having a lot of cool sounds, and not necessarily on how do I use these tools to communicate an idea. Because at the end of the day, music and art is about communicating something, and I think that you need both technicality, meaning technos, meaning how do I do this, plus a sense of structure, composition, layering in such a way that you can communicate effectively. So for me, it is a false dichotomy. I don't see them as being mutually exclusive. That's number one. And I think that if you're going to be great at what you do, then I believe you need both to a high degree.
I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that.
yeah. The way I would picture it, if I would clarify, my analogy earlier, it's like a poet. I mean, a poet, creates basically music with words. But if you don't have a good vocabulary, you can't really do the vocal gymnastics, of a great poet. So if you don't have technicality, you can't do as much with your musicality. You're limited that way. So
Exactly.
technicality is very important, but I think the community as a whole sees that they need to get to the next level.
Yeah,
I don't know if I fully agree with that actually in terms of the community as a whole. Saying that needs to get to that next level strictly because of what Edgar said about the younger beatboxers in particular. Because even though it will be nice to say the generation as a whole is moving towards this one grand goal, you know, but when you see so many people and you see especially, and sad to say it, that it's become a very big voice and like very large source of feedback, especially from the younger members of our community, happens to be in YouTube comments and the such, and some in various Facebook groups. And it seems like the what gives you value in the community and the eyes of the younger and the less experienced beatboxers per se is how complex, how can you go, how fast are you and whatnot. So, and not just that, but it seems like people don't necessarily that people want to separate beatboxing from the fact that it is a vocal art, because once people start to say sing and stuff, they're like, oh, this isn't a singing competition, da 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 da, and it's like it's still using your voice. And I can understand in a say in a battle situation where if you sing your entire round, then I can understand some of the some of the backlash someone might get, but at the same time, just because an individual is using their voice to sing doesn't necessarily mean that they're not beatboxing, because it's still the voice, kind of, if you get what I'm
Well,
saying.
two things I want to clarify is I never said singing is musicality. Like
Oh, I know
if a
you
guy
didn't say. I was
sings,
saying in general.
yeah, in general, anyone who immediately says, "Oh, he's singing," "Oh, he's trying to be musical," is completely off base. I mean, the fact is, I've heard plenty of musical beatboxers use the craziest of inward sounds. BR being one of them. He's incredibly musical. But what I meant earlier was, and I'm blanking on the topic. What I meant was not that the whole community, as in everyone boxes, needs to jump onto musicality. I'm saying that for the community to grow to that next level in the evolution of beatboxing, that musicality is the goal that we're trying to attain next. That we do build techniques that cater to musicality.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree 100%.
Also,
Having said
also,
that,
al-
oh, go ahead, Edgar. Edgar.
I wanted to point out that I think the division between technicality and musicality is I guess more relevant in the battle situation. I think that and this might be kind of sad. I think many people want to see really technical beatboxing in a battle situation a lot more than somebody trying to be as musical as possible. And I think that that might have something to do with the backlash that Mark Martin versus Trung Bao battle might have gotten in terms of styles, because I feel like many of these younger beatboxers again want to see more of an athletic display of skill, more so than a communication of musical ideas in that context.
Having
And I
said
think it's
that, though, you have to think back to 2015 when Gene won Grand Beatbox Battle, and how he won that. He won that with musicality.
he did, yeah.
Yeah. Then, well, for the
I
most
mean,
part.
well, yeah, for the most part. I mean, like he did some really cool like technical stuff. I mean, he did the I can't even imitate the
Oh. Oh, the.
you know uh yeah. Technically, like that was like such a weird. I forgot what the term was. It was rhythmic modulation. He's accenting every third note on a 4/4 beat,
Ah.
um, or something along those lines, and that's why it just sounded so weird rhythmically. He was incredibly technical. I mean, that's where the balance is. His musicality grew that much more because he was a good technical beatboxer.
That just kind of goes back to the analogy that I made earlier when it comes down like to the song and having like that drum solo section, but the drummer also being able to do things along with the melody of the song is when you have that person that can embody both of those traits, and it elevates their skill because they can do that on just how much higher level, and they can execute their more melodic stuff with even more flair because they're able to do more at like once, and they know how to pace because technicality, even though it's something that's very associated with speed and whatnot, it's also just as much about pacing as it is about speed and complexity. And
Definitely.
not a lot of
I
people
also
think about that.
I would also add sound quality to technicality.
True, because a lot of people can be very kind of sloppy and not clean with their beats, and it just kind of sounds like a muffled mess.
Exactly. And I would also add to that, how do you work within different rhythmical structures, when it comes to, for example, um, a lot of beatboxing and a lot of music is done in the 4/4 time signature, but a beatboxer that doesn't know music may not know that 4/4 is actually the most basic time signature that you can play music. So if you take that a step further and you do what Gene does, which is, by the way, because the name is metric modulation,
Thank
um,
you.
it's when you actually play around with with the musical structure itself. Meaning, sometimes Gene goes from 4/4 to 6/8 to 5/4
Yeah.
in quick succession, and that denotes music knowledge on music theory and music knowledge on a more broader level. So I would include those elements in my definition of technicality.
Yeah.
Great examples of that is Skiller and LM, two people that are known for their speed and technicality that can mix up their pacing and the way that they go about their time signatures and everything like that so flawlessly without necessarily needing a melody to quote unquote be quote unquote musical. But the fact that they're doing that is that they're being very musical because they're showing their knowledge of music theory with just what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. Um. Having said that, this whole topic does relate into the Mark versus Trung controversy that has been going on, and the whole debate between that. Notice how I set that up in the whole chat right there, M and T. Yeah. Um. So in my opinion, I know Kaz, you don't want to make an opinion. Um.
Uh, as I'm not going to pick sides between Mark and Trung. Both of them, uh, I've got the hang out with Trump during the American Champs, and I've known Mark for a few years now. So I rather not, say, oh, this person was better than who. But yeah,
Uh,
we'll talk about a lot of the other stuff that I'll chime in when I feel like it.
yeah. No, yeah. Mark versus Trung. In my opinion, Mark had that. No matter what anyone says, he earned that battle. He fought for it hard. If you ask me, I have nothing against Trung. Big ups to him that he placed second. But no, yeah. If you ask me, he was very repetitive with his or whatever he does. That's just personal thought.
Now, I first off, I agree to an extent that Trunk Bao was a bit repetitive, but I feel like, well, first and foremost, before I even go starting to analyzing battle, personally, I feel like in the first two rounds, excluding the OT, I would have given it to Trung Bao strictly because even though he was repetitive, Mark also kind of was. So I feel like their repetitiveness kind of cancels out. And it comes down to the fact that Mark had very good structure and flow and execution, and the fact that Trung Bao had diversity, a complex execution of musicality in certain aspects, as well as pretty decent execution, even though his flow lacked a little bit. And I feel like the fact that he used a wider sound palette while still keeping a relatively good balance in the way he executed that sound palette, that's why I would have given it to Trung Bao in terms of the first two rounds. But since it did go into OT, I think Mark absolutely destroyed Trung Bao in the OT because Trung Bao, he fell victim to something that a lot of people fall victim to in overtime rounds is, I got to go fast to win.
Mm-hmm.
And he just went fast. He didn't pace himself. He started getting a little sloppy and whatnot. And Mark just paced himself into such a groove and a flow, and like even being there, like a lot of people will just say, "Oh, certain things. Oh, if you're not there live, you can't really say anything." As someone that was there live and someone that has watched the video, both it's very easy to see why they gave that OT to Mark, having been there and then even watching the video. And I feel like the reason why a lot of people are kind of upset, especially that overall the win was given to Mark, is because they have this mentality where you have to be like super like high energy or whatnot and like super powerful and all that stuff to win a battle. And Mark has the power. That's a definite thing right there. Mark was definitely the more powerful beatboxer in terms of just volume and sheer loudness of his sounds, but he wasn't as high energy. But being high energy is not something that I find necessary to win in a battle. Like, did we not see Gene win his battle literally while doing Amazing Grace? Like, and I feel like those moments where people aren't necessarily focusing on being so high energy and all that, I feel like those moments are really underappreciated. And so many people want every single battle to be so high energy and whatnot that it leaves no room for non-high energy artistry, because you can be artistic and express yourself in however way you want to. But the fact that we've grown as a community so much within a battling culture, it kind of has that, it kind of puts that mentality in certain people's heads that you have to be aggressive, you have to be high energy, you have to be really complex, you have to be fast and whatnot, or you have to have some crazy build up and some crazy drop and whatnot. And all those things are cool, but they're not necessarily, they're not the law of the land. You don't necessarily have to do those things. So even though I would have given the win to Trung Bao, I have no problem with the fact that they called an OT and that Mark definitely won an OT. So I personally have no problem that Mark was crowned champion. I feel like they're both like, I've talked with both of them before. They're both cool dudes. They're both really freaking good beatboxers. I don't care what anybody says. They're both fantastic beatboxers. And to any haters, I can say, one, were you there? And two, did you make top 16? No? So, okay. And I just feel like people need to take a different approach to listening and watching battles and not going into it thinking this has to be high energy, this has to be like super aggressive and whatnot. Because if they had that mentality and they're expecting a Michael Bay movie out of like every single battle, they're not gonna have like the appreciation for something that's like you get what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel like it comes down to the mentality that certain people need to take, and they need to just approach it differently. But in terms of the backlash, I feel like it is completely unnecessary. Some of the backlash that's happening, like you don't need to. Like I've seen people on the videos that have come out on Swiss Beatbox in particular after the final was uploaded, which were saying like it's never the same since Trung Bao didn't win, or saying hateful things against Mark. And Mark's not even featured in the video. You know, it's like just being so unnecessary and whatnot. It's so unnecessary. People are being petty, they're being childish, and I feel like people really just need to take a step back and look at their own responses and see how they sound, because I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily realize how kind of disrespectful they are to the hard work certain people put in just to get to where they were. Like this isn't like Mark, regardless if you like his style or not, you can't deny the fact that this is somebody that's been doing this for a long time, has put the work in, and as of 2016 has earned a spot as champion. And the way people are treating Mark in particular after this is, in my opinion, completely disrespectful to the hard work that he's put in as a beatboxer. That's just me. And when it comes to the judging, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's rigged and whatnot." Every single judge is a judge that deserves to be a judge. Like they are all credible, and I believe all of them have the capacity to judge objectively, regardless of the relationships that some of them might have. And let's be honest, I I I would put money on the fact that everybody at the judging table and a lot of people that were in top 16, they're all probably pretty good friends when you think about it. They're probably pretty good friends. They probably talk a decent amount when you really think about it. So if in a lot of events around the world, a lot of the judges are friends with a lot of the competitors. You know what I'm saying? So is every single battle rigged? So I feel like a lot of people need to kind of get off of this rigged bandwagon, because the fact of the matter, it's a community, so it's bound to happen where a judge is in a relationship, whether it be a friendship or a significant other relationship with the competitor. So I just feel like people really do need to change their perception of things and really need to take a step back and not automatically assume the worst. And hey, stop sending hate towards the judges. Like, come on now. The judges don't deserve that. They made the decision. Live with it. If you don't like it, that's one thing, but there's no need to gang up on them.
If you don't like it,
Oh,
just
okay.
kind of enter next year and do your best.
Exactly. Win, boy or girl.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to add about the judges. I mean, a lot of people were given a lot of anger towards Kayla. But originally, when they were planning it, Kayla and Gene weren't actually part of the judging roster. A few judges, I don't remember the full details, but a few of the judges did drop out. They just were never announced. Reeps one was supposed to judge. They sent him an offer, but he did the whole Boston residency, and he actually ran out on his visa, so he had to leave the United States. And that's when Gene stepped in, and we announced that Gene was one of the judges. And I forgot who else dropped out, but it was Kayla ended up filling in that seat. You know, the Beatbox House were the ones who were hosting the American Champs. So, you know, everyone in the Beatbox House had some sort of job, whether, you know, helping organize, help hand out flyers, stuff like that. So there was no malicious intent with Kayla, you know, judging. It's just she's helping. It would have been, you know, someone else, but and as far as, you know, the relationship between Mark and Kayla, honestly, I don't think they really expected Mark to rank as high as he did, but it was such the perfect scenario. I mean, no one from the beatbox house was competing. You know, this stuff was very unexpected. And I just wanted to add one more thing about what you were saying, Caleb, about overtime rounds. Everyone doesn't like no one preps properly for overtime rounds. Like it's 30 seconds. It is a legit round. You have to prepare for that. You know, a lot of people they'll just try to freestyle or try to go super fast. You know, the fact that Mark decided, hey, this is my stuff. I'm doing this was such a ballsy move, you know? Like he, you know, just did what he was going to do. He had a round prepped, you know. Any beatboxer, anytime you go into overtime round, it's because you are at a tie with the other beatboxer. The judges don't know who's better. So if you think of it that way, you have to show the judges something about you, whether it's, hey, this is me, or hey, this is something I can do really well. So impress the judges. That's what the overtime round is for.
I definitely agree with that. And just going off what you just said, with the common thing being the hyperspeed response to overtime rounds, the fact that Mark made that conscious decision to not go into that hyperspeed mentality, just go try to go fast or not. The fact that he did that, he made a very clear distinction and made it easier for them to judge, because it was one person that was fast and maybe not that clean with his execution versus somebody that paced themselves and had very good execution and wasn't just super fast. So I guess just any suggestion to anybody that might see this that ends up in an overtime round, maybe not necessarily just go straight for the super speed crutch, you know, do you, but make sure you do you in a way that only you can do it.
Yeah.
That being said, though, cause just what you said about no one prepares for overtime rounds. There's always that one person at an event who has routines planned out for every round, including overtimes. For me, unfortunately for my battle at Midwest, that one person was Tyler W. Tyler, he told me he prepares all of his rounds, and then overtimes. He has like little 30-second sets. But for the most part, yeah, you're right. No one prepares for those.
Yeah, it's I've seen, you know, guys who, you know, people perceive as better lose during the overtime rounds, and it's because, you know, they decide that's the one round they're going to freestyle. Seriously, freestyle your actual battle. I mean, like Komodo freestyled all of his rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like he came out and said, yeah, I freestyled everything. And that's how he went into the battle. And that to me sounds insane. You're either insane or Kenny Urban, you know, to do that. But you know, you have to really believe in your skills. If you feel like you're prepping everything, like Tyler W did, that's one thing. But if you feel like you're more confident as a freestyle, then freestyle. But you know, the overtime round, that's when you need to show who you are. And I feel a lot more people would do a lot better if they prep their overtimes.
I agree with that. And just touching on the whole thing with Komodo and the way he went into American Champs is, I've had several conversations with him after the event, and the one thing about this dude is he really was there just to have a good time. He didn't go there expecting to win or try and take the crown or whatnot. He was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try my best and I'm just gonna have fun. He didn't just go, oh, I'm gonna beat all these dudes, I'm gonna go hard and whatnot. And I feel like the fact that he came into it with a mentality where he didn't put pressure upon himself, it allowed him to do so well while freestyling. Because I feel like, especially with freestyling, because if you have a routine, that's one thing. But when you're freestyling and you're putting so much pressure on yourself and your head's not fully in it, and you're still focusing on, am I doing something right? And am I gonna mess this up if I make this transition? You know, is this drop gonna sound good? But he just went in and he just did it. And I feel like a lot of people need to kind of have a mentality where at least try to trick yourself into having a mentality to where it's just you try your best and just try to enjoy the experience. A lot of us, of course, we would probably like to be known as an American champion. Those of us that were there, those of us that want to compete or champion of wherever you are. A lot of people just go there for the experience. Some people go there because they want to win. Me personally, I would like to win, in the upcoming years, hopefully, so I can qualify for maybe like 2021 Worlds. We'll see. But it's also for the experience. Just even though like I didn't place top 16, but I learned even more. Like I learned some things that I need to work on, which is definitely my stage presence of one thing and being able to control my nerves. That's the two things that that definitely need to work on because I noticed that even having performed in various areas, almost nothing is more nerve wracking than beatboxing in front of a room full of other beatboxers, especially with some of them being people that you look up to. Like, especially when you're on stage. If it's just at a jam and whatnot, that's one thing. But it's on stage, you're supposed to show your skills to kind of qualify to be known as the best in whatever event this is. It's there's a lot of pressure that somebody can put on themselves because the room is full of people that you've probably seen tons of videos from, people that you look up to, people that you were inspired by, depending on who might be there. And it's just
Yeah.
one of the things you have to learn is that what mentality are you going to go into an event with. That's just one thing.
Having said that, though, there's also sometimes you just gotta go balls deep, just go right in. Like my first Midwest, I did Napalm's. Kaz remembers this. I did I did Napalm's. You can't roll like this right in front of him, right at the workshop. Looked him dead in the eye too. Like that's how I got over it. And there's ways to cope with stuff like that. Like I know, not by force by any means. I don't encourage anyone to do this by force, but I know before Midwest this year and last year, I threw up at least twice. And then I was like, okay, all my fear. No, cause this year I threw up 4 times. But then
Four times?
Four times. And then once after my
We talked
elimination.
during the West.
What was that?
Is that why your breath smelled? I'm kidding. I said, is that why your breath smelled? Nah. So my story is the first time I went to an American Champs was 2014, and that's how I, was introduced with the beatboxing. I met Reeps 1, and I swear to you, my voice squeaked when I talked to him. Like, it was kind of embarrassing because I'm actually like 5 years older than him. And like when I went to the UK Champs, I mean, it was so chill. I mean, he actually took us out to dinner. It was me, Adam, Peponi, who else was there? And like he's such a nice guy. You gotta realize when you go to the event, don't ever get starstruck by all the crazy good beatboxers there. They're just like you. They did the things. They went to beatbox against someone. They probably threw up 4 times before they went up on stage. But now they're very comfortable with themselves as boxers, and you can be very comfortable with other beatboxers too, and come to events.
I definitely agree with that. Like when I first learned to really just loosen up and not be as like nervous or whatnot was when I went to the American Beatbox Festival earlier in 2016. And personally, the 2 biggest influences in terms of the way that I approach beatboxing as a art form and really taking it as beyond something just dealing with just like battling is Reeps 1 and Kayla actually. And Kayla was there, and it was like my first time I'm actually having an opportunity to really talk to her. And I was like, I caught myself thinking like, oh, don't embarrass yourself or whatever. But like after just a few minutes of like chatting with everybody there and whatnot, you really understand that regardless of how high somebody's skill level is, they're just another human being. So I definitely agree with what Kazu said. So You're
Well,
gonna get too starstruck.
as the only one in the panel that hasn't been to an American Beatbox Championships, that I feel like that, and I'm actually looking forward to that because I mean I've never actually beatboxed in a room full of beatboxers, so that should be an interesting experience. But I mean, dealing with beatboxing, being like doing it professionally over here in Puerto Rico and Latin America, and performing as a solo artist and with other musicians as well. I've found that obviously the more you do it, the easier it gets. One thing that really helps me, or rather helped me when I was starting out to perform, is that you're pretty much doing what you do every day. The only difference being that you're now doing it in front of a crowd. Now people are watching you. That's something that really really helpful to me in terms of being relaxed on stage, or at least in the beginning. Now, with over 200 performances under my belt, it's become a much more relaxed process. Also, there's a great quote: "Preparation breeds confidence." So whenever I go on stage, I try to make sure that I am as prepared for the event as possible, and that also helps me be as relaxed as can be. However, I do recognize that I still haven't had the experience of doing it in a room full of beatboxers, so I might get a bit nervous at first. We'll see. Maybe next year will be the year.
We've
Well,
already kind of transitioned into our next topic, which is American champs opinions. I
okay, so I'm going first. Okay, I'm going first on this one. Okay, first and foremost, American Champs was freaking awesome, and I'm just gonna plug it now. There's gonna be a lot of videos coming out from North American Beatbox starting in 2017. The vast majority of them were recorded from so many people from so many different types of styles. Some people that you may have heard of, some people that you may not have heard of, and they're all found at American Champs. And what I really appreciate about American Champs was the fact that I was exposed to people that took beatboxing as more than just like battling and whatnot, but not just people that were like the usual quote unquote people that take it beyond that. Not like the Kayla or the Jeans or the Fatonies or whatnot that think of it more than just like a battling thing, but even some people that yeah, I've never heard of till I was there. And one in particular, their name is escaping me at the moment, but they do a lot of R&B influenced beats, and they did something very similar to kind of like beat rhyming, but with a very R&B feel. And I feel like that's something that was like that was my biggest thing about American Champs was just being exposed to more people that approach boxing differently. But every battle was amazing, pretty much. And Komodo is my favorite in terms of my favorite performer or battler of the event. I'm giving that to Komodo. So NAB Komodo overall event was fantastic. Also, I digged the venue. I like that venue a lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are my thoughts.
As a photographer, I hated that venue. Uh, a lot of blue lights. All of y'all came out really bluish, and that annoyed me. But besides that, dude, the one great thing about open elimination was that it seriously we had over 100 people go through eliminations. When I went to Canadian Champs, they have the seed-in. They only do the top 16 through video submission. So I only got to meet, the top 16 in Canada, whereas I met 100 beatboxers from across the United States. You know, um,
David, cut this. Okay, so for me, I wasn't there live, so I can't say much on this. But no, yeah, American champs. That was really overwhelming for me, only because I had multiple people calling me on Skype, messaging me, and like messaging me on personal accounts which I didn't even know people knew, and joining my rooms on Discord, saying, "How did so and so not make it in?" I don't know why they'd ask me, but they did. So the should I just say his name? I don't even know. Caleb? Should I? Okay. So that person was Inertia. How did Inertia not make it in? And I all I kept saying was what was it? It's not my place to say. It's not my place to say. It's not my place to say. But I feel like now, as the event's over, I can say, um, Inertia, if you're watching this, I love you. You're one of my great friends, but you were sloppy. I know people were saying or you were saying you were sick and such, but I saw you I saw your battle against or in 2v2s, and that was the same night as open elims. I'm not trying to call anyone out or anything, but yeah, there's a couple other people who I was asked why didn't they make it in, but that was the big one. Um,
I think he lowballed it. I think I don't know. I've heard both sides of the story. I heard people saying, well, I thought he lowballed it. I thought he was thinking that he would get in a lot easier. We were all surprised that Inertia didn't make it in. I would be really curious to know where he ranked, but I think they lost. Like, however they ranked it, everyone, it got kind of like shuffled around. Like everyone that made it in was supposed to make it in, but they didn't keep any of the, who didn't make it in.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people were kind of upset about, that there
Yeah,
wasn't a lot of like beyond just the 16. And it's understandable why people would like, because people would want to know where they, but at the same time, like after thinking about something that Lethal Flex said, he said that either way, you guys didn't place top 16, and just place top 16 next year,
yeah,
regardless of where you placed. Put that work in so you can jump from wherever you placed up into the top 16. So
yeah.
yeah,
And the
I
other
feel
thing
like
was,
that's
mhm. And the other thing was, some people were saying that, oh, it's because it's Inertia. They expected more from him, but I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of his elimination, if I recall correctly.
no, as I
well,
said, in my opinion,
limbs in
it was
general.
very sloppy. He didn't have much flow. He was very quiet. Um,
That is one thing. I feel like a lot of people that don't have that much experience in terms of with not even necessarily being on stage with a live battle, but just live performing in general. Although they may not have experience performing and whatnot, they don't necessarily know how to put correct power into a microphone or the beatboxing and whatnot. I'm not saying Inertia doesn't know, because after seeing him and whatnot and seeing his energy levels and the such, I feel like the sickness or whatever that he had definitely did affect him to a certain extent, which may have really affected his beats. That's just
Yeah,
me.
that was
That's just what I think.
that was one thing that I commented on. He told me he was sick. I have nothing against Inertia, by the way. Inertia is one of my best friends. I've known him for about 2 years now. Um, see, he claims he was sick, but then he goes into 2v2s and his inward bass sounds fine. His vibration bass sounds fine. That just seems kind of fishy to me.
That that's an understandable. That's an understandable concern. At the same time, the thing with 2v2s is especially depending on which roles you play, um, and especially depending on which sounds you prepare for your rounds. And think about it. Inward bass and vibration bass are pretty much the most like in terms of the sounds that an Inertia uses the most in a lot of his beats. Those are very common sounds in his beats. In fact, they're really common sounds in his beats. And as somebody that also uses a certain amount of sounds more commonly than others, even when you are sick, you tend to still be able to execute them with a decent amount of precision, unless it's something kind of more severe. And like when I was up there, I could barely do my vibration bass at all during the 2v2s, and that was just me being stupid because I just kind of overworked myself because I was just so excited to jam with everybody and just exchange sounds and the such. So that that was just bad planning on me in terms of just being able to save material and such. But I feel like I'm giving Inertia the benefit of the doubt because I know, and a lot of us know how being sick can affect your beatboxing and whatnot. Especially if you're doing an limb and you're not sure how hard you should go, if you want to maybe save material for battles or whatnot, you're not entirely sure how heavy you want to punch it and such. It is kind of easy, especially when you are under the weather, to not execute as well as you possibly could. But and overall, I feel like a lot of the eliminations were pretty enjoyable. There was even from the much younger people. Um, you I apologize for any background noise. Um, some of the much younger individuals. I believe there was a kid that I think the youngest competitor was like I believe 11 or 10. I'm not sure, but he did great. I don't remember the kid's name, but like, seeing him and even Technics came back again and did some really sick stuff and whatnot. It's it makes me feel good seeing that a lot of these younger kids are actually bringing like a lot of fire, even though they're like these kids haven't even hit puberty yet, and they're already bringing like a lot of fire. So it makes me pretty optimistic for their future.
Do you remember Adam Beatbox Elsh got a shout out from him, but I forgot his name. It was like SMG or something.
I
Like
think so.
even Alem was like, yeah, Alem like got up and was just like blown away, like from this young kid doing, and he was like kind of doing like an Alem beat, but he was just doing it so fast, and it was like pretty clean too. I remember. Like I was,
There's a lot of young upcoming talent in America, and I feel like Komodo is a very good example of people that you did not see coming. And I feel like America
oh
has a lot of people that people are just not going to see coming. Honestly, like
yeah,
it happened last year with Paris. Paris came out of nowhere and held his own at Midwest and was an American champs, top 16 2 years in a row. And I would not be surprised if Komodo also was in top 16 next year. And I feel like as it just goes on, there's gonna be a lot of people that you never really heard of or never really had a lot of like quote unquote street cred in the community. It's just gonna come out of nowhere and crush it. And it makes me excited personally because I love seeing more and more talent come into the community because it's so easy for select people to really influence the way everyone sounds because we have a few real big names. Everybody tries to sound like those big names and whatnot, so there's less diversity in the way that people sound because a lot of people tend to try to sound a lot like their inspirations until they kind of find their own style, and it makes me excited seeing so much new talent come in because it's adding to the diversity of the potential of future beatboxers as well as the diversity of beatboxers that are in here currently.
Definitely, and another thing that I noticed when I was watching the videos is that the amount of sponsors for the event was, I believe, the highest it's been. I don't know if Kazu has more info on that, but the very first thing that I noticed when I was watching the videos was people, or rather entities or websites or what have you, sponsoring the championships. I believe that is an important aspect of doing events because number one, it helps with the cost of producing that event, and also it allows for the possibility of having incentives for people that win, or people that participate on the championships. I thought that was cool. And also you see how every year the event's bigger. Um, More people go. To put it in perspective, in the last World Championships, you had about 135, I believe it was, solo eliminations, and there was over 100 beatboxers that went to the American Beatbox Championships alone. So that the growth in terms of the number of people that go into the events. So that's indicative of a bright future, I believe.
Yeah, no, I had so much fun at the American Champs. It would be great for you to be able to make it up and either compete or at least jam with everyone.
Definitely. Also, how now, in terms of going back to the sponsoring thing, and how that affects something that I remember we had to talk about on the We Talk Beatbox channel, and it is how sponsorship helps marketability of the beatboxing scene, and of the artists that make it happen and make it grow and make it exist. Especially, actually, I find it quite interesting, coming at it from as a beatboxer that isn't from the U.S. It's as a beatboxer from Latin America. I find it very good how the artists themselves are the producers of the event. Um, because over here, usually you have outside influences that take up on in terms of making the event happen. But when you have an artist uh, setting aside the artistry for the event, to work in the production aspect, that adds another layer to, I guess, the artist growing in another area that's just as important as the music. Because I'm pretty sure people at the Beatbox House wanted to compete, but they understood that if they didn't step into that producer role, then the event wouldn't be possible. And so I think that as more beatboxers um, understand that there's a lot more that goes into building careers or building artistry aside from the skills themselves, I think that's also going to be indicative of more things going on within the community, such as this podcast.
Yeah, no,
I agree definitely with that. And just touching on one thing that you talked about is kind of like being outside of just the battling culture or scenarios. Because I know a lot of people, because my whole thing is beatboxing is, in my opinion, the most raw outlet for musical expression that human beings can possibly express. And I feel like the fact that it is so raw and it guarantees us so much freedom. We can do whatever we want with it, whether you want to be purely a battler or whatnot, or somebody that battles and performs and make a career out of it. Do it for a hobby, or you want to be the best. You can be however you want to be when it comes to boxing. You do you. But in terms of those that do, or at least are interested in one way or another in making a career out of it, I feel like a lot of people, and I'll admit, even myself, to a certain extent, before I started like performing in certain areas, I started understanding the value of non-battle focused scenarios and events. A lot of people feel as if before they become quote unquote successful as a beatboxer, they need to be successful as a battler. And they don't feel like they'll be able to go far on the commercial level of things if they don't have some type of title. And even though titles probably they can help, but there are so many boxers that don't have any titles that are out here putting that work in and are making maybe not necessarily the most money in the world, but they're making something off of beatboxing. They're making something. Some people are making enough to kind of help them like live. Some people are doing it on the side with another job. It's not like something that people are, oh, if you get big with it, you're gonna be so like set for life or whatever. That's pretty much not the case ever. But I feel like a lot of people just need to think about the fact that you don't have to be the winner of some battle or competition or something to venture on and then become successful outside of battling. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. They think, oh, I have to win first before I go beyond just the battling culture.
Yeah, a lot of
I would
people.
like to add. I would like to add one thing though. There are plenty of people who have never battled and who have made careers out of beatboxing. A
Truth.
few example is Verbal Ace, who bust
Yes.
in the subway systems and made a career and a name for himself that way. And Chesney Snow, who is the founder of the World Beatbox Association and the American Champs. He never competed in those battles. I don't know if he's ever been in a battle, but I know that he's never really was known as a battler, and he's on Broadway right now. So for people to understand that, battling will definitely level you up, but it is not like a milestone you need to hit necessarily.
Definitely, and I would add to that in the case of Verlace, Verlace is, while he is not known as a battler, he has battled in the past. Like he's been in contests before, but definitely he's a great example of somebody that takes his skills and uses them in a way that's very unique and creative, and also I would say genuine and honest to him. And now he has a video with 1 million+ views on YouTube. In the case of Chesney Snow, it's very good that you mentioned him, because he's one of those guys that I believe doesn't get the amount of, I guess, credit or love that he should be getting in terms of everything that he's accomplished not just as a beatboxer but as an artist as well. And which brings me to my other point, and it is that Chesney is somebody that makes beatboxing a part of what they do. And I believe that that's something that for any beatboxer out there that wants to make a career out of his artistry, I would just say, what is yours? It's important to have a skill set and not just a skill. When somebody goes to the conservatory to study music, percussionists don't just study their instrument. They learn how to do different things within music, and so as to build a skill set that allows you to diversify what you do, and thereby raising your chances of making a decent living doing what you love to do. I think that that's important. That's also something that's important to point out, because I see a lot of beatboxers like CTV, who's here in this panel, and somebody like Trung Bao and others that have different interests besides beatboxing. And I believe that in whenever you take all your skills and put them to work, or blend them together in a way that's unique to you, that also raises the chances of you venturing out into the world and doing something with it. So I think the American Beatbox Championships, with the diversification of categories to compete in, is helping in that regard.
Now, one, I agree with the different categories helping with that, but two, what you just said with people needing a diverse skill set, what they also need is they need a diverse imagination in terms of how they want to approach their beatboxing, so how they're going to use it. Because a lot of people think of beatboxing in two applications, really. They think of it in performance, in terms of like on stage, or they think of it battling, either on stage or online. When you have people like Hobbit, which I believe does the voice for a juke in Amazing World of Gumball, which is a jukebox that just beatbox sounds. That's how he talks. I believe Hobbit is the one that does the beatboxing for that character. There are people like say Chesney and Heaven that are using beatboxing stuff on in the theater scope. People that do sound effects and whatnot for various productions and whatnot. You see Tom Thumb collaborating with orchestras and whatnot. And I feel like a lot of people really just think of just battling and then just doing the very stereotypical high performance on stage. And they don't necessarily think about the other ways that they can either influence an art form or allow an art form to influence them. And we've seen one of the biggest examples of kind of that unorthodox usage of the human voice in terms of the way that we approach how to use beatboxing is something that Reeps One definitely showed in his ADO, like a mini documentary thing that he has on ADO that where he does the cymatics and whatnot with like the inking different materials with the sound of his beatboxing and whatnot to create art pieces and have people be able to see his performances as well as hear them, which is another way that he applies his art forms, going back to what Edgar said about having a skill set as kind of applying those art forms, but also having the application of a diverse imagination as well. I feel like those are the two things that you really need to have: is a diverse imagination in terms of how you want to apply beatboxing, and a diverse skill set. Once you have both of those things, I guess what it really just comes down to what you do with those things once you have those things.
I just want to add something semi-related, but really off topic. If you guys remember Monkey from the Netherlands, check his YouTube channel out. He is a great example of someone who's a beatboxer, but is also a very good artist. He does a lot of stop motion stuff with his artwork. Please check that out. It blew my mind. I'm not even gonna, describe it.
Also, check out Payne. His check out Payne's Instagram. I'll put that in the description as well. He also does some pretty cool art.
From Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, he's a gamer too, right? Because he was posting a few videos. That was him of
I
him playing
believe
something
so.
online.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't even mention that. The fact that gaming is definitely one of the biggest gateways for the non-battling or performing beatbox, outlet. A lot of people are like, oh, we're going to do some gaming videos and has some beatbox in the gaming video. It's not necessarily anything quote unquote new anymore, but it is something that definitely was influential. So yeah.
Howdy, toasters.
You got
Oh yeah, so Coastal Toast and Bunny Fluff and they're a great example of that.
it's codfish now.
It is true. It is indeed codfish now.
I've in the years that I've known him, he's been Bunny Fluff. It's like my cousin just changed his name. I still call him what his name was. It's hard for me to transition.
Okay, so let's get to going about the Grand Beatbox Battle 2017. There were a lot of wild cards that came out this year, and there was a lot of good ones. There was no way that I could. I feel like it would be hard for anybody to really predict exactly who was going to make top 8. Everybody, of course, had their favorites, but yeah, let's start right there. Those that I've seen a couple of wild cards. What were your favorite wild cards?
By far, His
was great. I'm not gonna lie. His was great.
I also liked. Oh, what was his name? Oh my God, this is gonna drive me crazy if I don't figure this out tonight.
So I'm gonna go first for all the categories that I can think of. I liked Slizzer. I loved his sucker punch routine. And dude, for Loop Station, I'm actually really excited for Loop Station. 2 boxers, Sorrow and Robin. If you haven't seen their Loop Station video, I actually just watch it just because nowadays.
My favorite videos by far had to be in order 2H, Hiss, Zlizer, and honestly, Article. I know Article is like, oh, Article. But no, Article was one of them. And Villain was my fifth. By far. Villain is
I don't
very
know.
underestimated.
I don't know exactly if I have an order per se, but I'll just rattle off a few because it's hard for me to say in order. But I feel like my definite standout favorite was most certainly Slizzer, and I feel like Slizzer is somebody that has always, for as long as I've seen him like in the community, he's always been just great. And I feel like I guess you could say the newer, like some of the newer people really weren't aware of just the pure raw talent and skill that he had, and he showed it so flawlessly in his wild card that it was like an instant classic for me. I feel like his wild card was an instant classic, but I feel like man, Trung Bao's definitely stuck out to me as well. Uh, articles stuck out to me, but it felt like I was listening to inertia
Mhm.
when the drop came. Like there's no disrespect to article, but it just felt like I was listening to inertia when the drop came. I feel like both of the Mad Twins killed theirs. I feel like they destroyed theirs. It was great. Um, I feel like those. Oh, and 2H and BMG. Those, yeah, that pretty much rounds out, I would say, my favorites. But I'd say I'm most excited. I'm easily the most excited, I feel like, just to see the return of 2H,
Oh yeah.
to be honest, because 2H, because even though Reap's one of my biggest inspiration, 2H in terms of stylistically, when I first started beatboxing, in terms of like doing sounds that like I would intentionally try to do sounds that I never heard anybody do, and just do like weird inward sound stuff. Is why my inwards still sound kind of weird to this day, is because of just the influence 2H had on me stylistically when I first started. So I am so excited to see the return of 2H, and I'm really interested to see Bird actually. And I don't know if a lot of people are actually like have them on the lookout, but all I'm saying is I don't I don't care what anybody says. You can accuse me of pandering if you want to, but I feel like too many people kind of underestimate female beatboxers in the community still, even though there's a lot of them that have come out here that are really good and have really just shown the fact that girls are just as good as it as guys. I feel like a lot of people still kind of underestimate them. And the fact of the matter is, even though Bird may not be super high energy and whatnot, like a lot of other people are like super powerful and all that stuff, they have great structure and they're pretty freaking diverse the way that they execute what they do. And I feel like a lot of people are underestimating them. So for me personally, in terms of like the 2v2s, they're like they're my dark horse. They're my dark horse 2v2. And personally, I would say Spider Horse for the win. That's my personal guess. It's gonna be Spider Horse for the win, but my dark horse is Bird for the 2v2. In terms of loop, I really want to see Thorson versus Penkicks. That's about all that I really want to see for so many reasons. But man, I feel like the loop station battles might be the hardest to really say who is a definite for the finals. But I would say that my personal favorite, who I would want to see win it, is between Tioneb and Dorson. Especially after Tioneb just went, both Tioneb and Thorson just went off last year, or you say this year, but they were just the standouts in my opinion for Loop Station. I really want to see great stuff from them again, so I would not mind seeing both of them in the final for 27.
See, for me, I want to see Grace Savage. I think she could go really far.
She's underrated. She is
Oh yeah.
underrated, to be honest.
Have you actually checked out any of her stuff on YouTube?
I haven't been able
I
to
have.
find any, believe it or not.
Follow her Instagram. A lot of her stuff she'll post. If you go on our Instagram,
because I did find a few videos. She did a cover of The Waiting Game, which I actually never heard of that song until I heard her perform it, and I love her drum and bass cover of it so much more than the original song. Yeah, she and Bellatrix, which is the Team Bird, they did really well. They won this year's UK Champs Tag Team. They're now the 2-time champ. And if any of you guys watched it, you'll know that they have some interesting material. Matter of fact, their winning round was actually kind of hilarious as an American.
For solos, there's
sorry.
one person I'm not really that excited to seeing, and that's Zero, actually. Believe it or not.
Really? What's that?
I honestly, I think he is highly overrated. I have nothing against him as a person. He's a great guy. I've known him for a while now, but I think beatboxing wise, he's overrated because he always starts off his videos with and then
And just going off of what Cyber said, like, I'll be honest, when they were announcing the winners or the wild cards, I was not surprised per se that Zero got a wild card, but I would say that, again, no disrespect to Zero, knowing that I've heard much better stuff from Zero, I feel like he could have made a better wild card, in my opinion, than what he did. What he did was fine. I think it was a decent wild card. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but it wasn't a bad wild card. I feel like he could have definitely done something a bit better, which would have made his wild card feel a bit more deserved, just in my opinion. But in terms of if he's overrated or not, personally, I feel like he's only quote unquote overrated on specifically the online scene, because we have yet to really see him battle people like that much on stage. I saw like only one video of him beatboxing with a microphone on stage before. I saw it on Facebook a couple months ago. So we don't necessarily know how his stage presence is going to be. We don't know necessarily how good his flow and structure is going to be once he's on the stage, under the lights, facing whoever he's facing, in front of those judges, in front of the crowd and whatnot. We don't necessarily know how he's going to execute. And I feel like one of the things that I really love seeing is seeing people that don't really have a lot of experience in front of crowds, really killing it in front of crowds. So I would love if Zero did well. I want everyone to do well, So I just feel like, is he necessarily someone to watch for the Grammy Box Battle 2017? I don't know if I was necessarily somebody to watch. I feel like Alexinho is definitely somebody to freaking watch for 2017.
oh yeah.
But Zero, I feel like, knowing that he definitely does have better stuff in store, but at the same time knowing that a lot of his drops include basically two main sounds, I am worried that he'll become repetitive. And other than that, I feel like Zero can do very well, but my main concern is that if he gets a bit repetitive, that's just my main concern with Zero.
My main concern with Zero, beat you, Cyber. My main concern with Zero is mic technique and stage presence. This is one of those things that, a lot of beatboxers who watch a lot of YouTube or, are on the online scene, they do listen for technicality way more than I do. And it wasn't until I started listening on Discord that I realized, oh, okay, this is why. And if you have like a nice microphone that isn't a handheld, you're not used to the proper mic techniques. And if you're sitting down, you're not really thinking about stage presence. You're not thinking about, hundreds of eyes upon you, while you beatbox. Yeah, Cyber is holding like a microphone that you don't need to hold in your hands and need to actually cup and have proper mic technique. So many beatboxers mess that up the first time they go up on stage. I've seen people, hold a mic, 2 inches in front, away from their face, doing the little one-up symbol, and completely just, yeah, Cyber's imitating right now. But yeah, you need to be able to hold the mic properly so that all of your sounds are hidden properly. I actually had an analogy for that one, or a story for that one. Caleb, you remember State Street at American Champs? Caleb, is your mic dead? Am I dead? Oh my god. Oh, okay. Hey, David, cut this. So one of the stories I figured I'd talk about for you know what? Skip the story. Just let's
I
go
know.
to the
I'm
next
back.
topic.
I'm back.
See,
But yeah, what do you say about
the
State
thing
Street?
I have with Zero, he sounds so quiet during his wild cards or his shoutouts. Like, I'm afraid like people live and the judges aren't gonna be able to hear him, and he's gonna rank really low, and people are just gonna say, "Wow, you suck," and that would crush him. I know that would crush him.
Honestly, I definitely that's I didn't think about that, but that's a very valid point. And I think a really good example for people that don't necessarily have that issue are people like Void. Void has, of course, a bunch of experience battling online, but Void has power and mic technique on stage as well. But a lot of people that have most of their experience being online, they never really had to project or really had to train their mic technique at all. So it's definitely something that I feel like I would hope Zero is practicing. I would hope he is practicing his mic technique. I would hope he is trying to get his power up because he definitely does sound more quiet. But Kazu, what were you saying about State Street?
Um, Mic technique. So for the most part, I categorize like about 4 different proper mic handling. One of them I call the just literally just holding the mic. If you watch any French beatboxers, they hold it the same way. It's literally just cupping the whole mic. Then there's like the one-up technique, which I call words against the nose. And the stage street is the cupping technique, where if you watch like old school Freddie Beats, he did that technique. And State Street was using that technique of cupping the mic, and he was having it so it was underneath his nose. And then when I was actually hearing him jam, I could hear him humming through his nose, and it wasn't being picked up by the mic at all. And I told him, literally just raise the mic, so when you hum, you can hear that, and you can hear such an improvement over his overall sound. So, mic technique is such a broad category that a lot of people kind of forget to do. Anyways, yes, what Caleb is doing right now. Yes, proper mic technique.
I feel like, honestly, I feel like that's something that needs to be taught in workshops. That isn't necessarily taught in workshops much. Is mic technique. A lot of it is how to do various sounds and how to improve beats and the such. But I feel like mic technique is something that is not taught as much as it probably should be when it comes to workshops and such and lessons.
Yeah. I know at the Midwest workshop, it wasn't even really a workshop. It was a jam session. Cause I don't remember if you were there this year. No? That's why your name's not on my poster. But
Yeah, we had to leave the day of the workshop. That was Sunday, right?
yeah. I battled Article, you missed it.
I'm pretty sure Article won.
Ouch. I could have overtimed him if it was a real battle. Thank you.
That's what they all say. But speaking of real battles and the such, and since we were just on the topic of Grand Beatbox Battle, out of those that did qualify um, for each category, what is the battle that you would most likely want to see from each category?
Hiss versus 2H solo.
It makes it so much
That's-
more awkward when they have to face each other or when they have to partner up in tag team.
Well,
It
that's
does.
like Napalm and Kenny Irvin.
But the thing is, the
Yeah,
difference
but I'm
is,
sure they're used to
yeah,
battling.
Napalm and McKinney, they've known each other for so long. We don't necessarily know the relationship between Hiss and 2H.
That's why it would be
You know,
fun.
But the thing is, I think it would be a great battle. I do think it would be a great battle, but it does raise some concerns about the possibility of the impact on their team chemistry. But out of the solos, man, I think I would really want to see. I want to see a rematch between Alexinho and Napalm. I want to see that
Honestly,
rematch.
yeah. I was originally going to say Napalm versus Zero, just because I would love to, especially if Zero does have really good mic technique, and good stage presence. See
True.
how that goes. Just because their style is, well, okay, beyond the lip rolls, they're just fairly interesting as beatboxers, and I would just love to see the head-head there. But yeah, Alexino and Napalm rematch. That would be actually really cool because I do watch. That is one of my favorite battles
Oh
from
yeah.
World Champs,
Oh, most
and
definitely.
I hate saying this, but Napalm came in with like a new technique that blew everyone away and kind of changed the game that we all feel in the beatbox community. But if you were to take that battle now, I still feel like Alexino would have like edged him out a little bit.
I
See,
feel like it's going to
I
be
don't
really
know.
interesting though, seeing what happens because once
Yeah.
somebody does make a splash and those ripples go out and they impact everyone, we all absorb that splash in one way, shape, or form. How does that individual that made that splash maintain their level of like, I guess you can kind of say supremacy
turning into
because
Predator.
shut up. Because a lot of times people will be like Napalm's liberal god, whatnot, and he definitely changed up because a lot of people like nobody really used lip rolls the way Napalm used them. They were around before Napalm, before anybody thinks Napalm invented lip rolls. He didn't, but he
I
used them in a
suppose
way
you
that
could
not
call
many
it that.
people really used them the way he did. And I feel like now the fact that he did that made a huge splash, impacted a lot of people, and now it's kind of it sucks to say, especially if you are Napalm, a lot of your iconic, drops and the such people can replicate pretty quickly, depending on how developed they are, depending on their skills and whatnot. In terms of a battle situation, it might be really difficult for Napalm to avoid being countered because we all know a good counter can definitely work in somebody's favor if they can get it off well. And Cyber, don't point at yourself when you're talking about counters. Timmy Turner. But for those that don't know. Me and Cyber had a battle. He did the Timmy Turner thing that designer did. I countered it. It was fun. But yeah, I feel like I really do hope that Napalm brings something really like new. Because like for instance, that he did like you ain't never heard a drop like this, like that. That was such
Yeah.
a cool drop and build up, and it's something that like it's not the most it's not the easiest of things to replicate at first, which makes it harder for somebody to counter to say if he does to do that in the battle. And I hope that he brings more like really fresh, diverse sounding drops and whatnot that he does. Basically, every competition he always almost has something new, which is great. So if he does bring something new, I feel like he will do fine. But if not, if he hasn't brought that much new stuff to it, man, I feel like almost anybody in the solo could give anybody in the solo run for their money when you really think about it.
No,
So,
tag
Kazu,
teams.
what? Hold up, wait, Kazu, what's your most anticipated? Like, what would be the battle that you want to see the most in solos?
Oh, honestly, you can never tell these things. I feel like I actually just wanted to go in and explain, a little bit backstory for anyone who doesn't understand Grand Beatbox. Um, so it will be a 4-minute showcase for all the solo artists. Um, I think it was 4 minutes, and they need to be able to prove themselves that they are the best performer for the showcases. And only four of them actually makes it into the battles. So, like you were saying, if Zero, underperformed during his showcase, that's all we will see of them. It's only four people that make it into the actual battle. Um, so with that, if you were to just look at this list and say, okay, who's going to be the top four? I couldn't tell you. I mean, any of these guys can come up with something so crazy and so cool. Um, you know, but again, it's who wants it the most. You know, who's the most prepared, who has the craziest ideas that year. So
And you
I
bring up a
can't
good
choose.
point though with it, because with the fact that like who's I guess you could really think about who is the best performers when the ones that get to the battles are the ones that perform the best. And that's because they're not battling against anybody. It really is that showcase. And when you think about it as a purely a performance thing, that makes me it makes me kind of concerned for people like Hiss and Zero in particular, that the majority of their experience outside of a few things, as far as I know, is just battling. And I feel like particularly people that are very routine heavy, they don't necessarily freestyle much. I feel like it would might be a very strenuous for them to execute a really good showcase round because they're so used to that minute 30 battle window that when they step into that 4 minute, you need to steal the show window. They may not know how to work the crowd. They may not know how to do things and make sure even the judges, like being able to play with the judges and the crowd and whatnot. Like that's why I have faith in the performance ability of every person in the top 16 except for Hiss and Zero, strictly because of the stage experience everyone else has had, whether it be battling and not battling, and like for just performances and such. So yeah, like other than those two, I'm pretty confident in the performance ability of
I
everybody
mean,
else. But
think of the guys who didn't make it in last year, who are who did really good, routines and stuff. Zhang Zi, or
true.
Zhangzha, who else? Beat Rhino. If you were to listen to those battles, you can tell where the routines ended. Like they did 2.5 routines more or less. They didn't do that full performance. You can argue against Napalm, but Gene did one full song for his eliminations. Kenny did like one giant performance based around that song he did. Bobbly did, well, basically Bobbly. The judges afterward were saying that it was, these guys exemplified, a great performance, a good performer, someone that brought music to the forefront of their performance. And Napalm was just, a crazy battler, and that's why he brought in the spirit of battling. And that was a quote by either Darney or Reeves. I don't remember if Darney was actually judging that year, so probably Reeves.
But that's a pretty good point. Edgar, what are your most anticipated battles or the solos?
Well, I actually would have to echo um, about Alexinho and Napalm. I think that their battle at the World Championship was highly competitive, highly entertaining. I I actually think that it was, dare I say, one of the sickest battles that we've ever seen. And so I think that to see that once again in another context is going to be interesting. I also think that the His versus Swage battle is going to be interesting as well. Um, so those are two that I legit want to see. Um, yeah. I wanted to mention something regarding the Grand Beatbox battle. I actually would like to know if we're going to see the crew battle category in the Grand Beatbox battles of the future. Um, because I think that if I'm not mistaken, the Beatbox House showcase at the last Grand Beatbox, and so now there's a couple beatbox collectives, or at least beatbox local groups that I think would make for a very interesting competition in that category. So I don't know if you guys have any information on that.
Well, I
Um,
don't necessarily know if I don't know if they might do it in the future. I don't know. Probably not because it's something that really is more world champs, you know? And I feel like in particular, dealing with the fact that even though there are a decent amount of beatbox vocal groups, I feel like the fact that there's not a huge amount yet, because there's a lot of tag teams, there's a lot of singles, there's a lot of people that are doing loop station and whatnot. I feel like there's not enough groups yet to make group battles and the such to be like a mainstay in a lot of events, just because there's yet as there might be in the future. So in the future, we don't really know. But as for now, I feel like it's something that's going to be mainly in the worlds. You're going to see Beatbox Collective very warm. Probably going to see Beatbox House and whatnot. We're going to see Under Control. Going to see probably all of them and
Mm-mm.
worlds competing. But we're probably not going to see those
On
teams
just
light up.
real quick,
Uh,
Under Control
yeah.
has disbanded. They're not a crew anymore. That was on Firebraz's Facebook page. Cause
I thought he said that one of the members left because uh, of certain circumstances, which was, I think he started a family. I didn't know that they disbanded completely. I thought
I
it was
may
just
have I may have misread, but I'm pretty sure they disband. Cause I remember it saying something along the lines of, if you haven't seen the Beatbox Collective, or not the Beatbox Collective, Under Control, our last show will be this date at this venue in Paris, France. I believe. I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, no. I mean, I really don't think we'll see crews at Beatbox Grand Beatbox, just because I just don't think there is enough um, beatbox crews. Uh, yeah, I mean, world champs, like, they invited pretty much anyone who said they were a crew. I mean, there was no, you know, title per se involved with that. Like, the Beatbox Collective literally formed officially, like, I think that year, and they basically practiced for the world champs. Um, yeah, no, I think I was talking to Bass Rupert, who's one of the Beatbox Collective. They basically became a team for world champs, and then realized, once they won, that they'll continue being a group. So, unless there's enough established groups, I don't think we're going to see Grand Beatbox hosting a crew battle.
Yeah. I think on that note, we're going to end the podcast. Only because it's been about 2 hours around there. And it's a lot.
You could always split it up to two podcasts.
That's true, but what fun is that? And
True.
it's also 1 a.m. and I'm falling asleep in my chair.
True.
So
My food's getting cold.
yeah, I think this is a good spot to end it. Let us know what you think about all the topics we talked about today. What are your predictions for Grand Beatbox Battle? And if you like this and think we should do more of this, drop a like and a comment. Yeah, send us questions. What would you like us to talk about in the next podcast? If you want another podcast,